Alright guys, I want to try to do a quick little video here on the Modify Accurate Hop-Up Chamber. After reading the reviews on it and whatnot, I see a lot of people are turned off because it comes disassembled, which is really no big deal because these things are a piece of cake to put together. So I was just going to give you a quick little rundown on the assembly, but also some key things to know due to it may not fit in some guns without modification, like the GMP. I tried it in both my GMPs, and both of them required this to be worked on a little bit before it would fit in like it should. So the first thing to note is the fins. The fins did have to be sanded down on either side, top and bottom. I suggest, don't take everything off one side. Take a little bit off this side, a little bit off that side, flip it over, do the bottom, so that way everything stays even and lines up the way it's supposed to line up with the gearbox. The second thing to note is where it meets the gearbox right around here. That would not fit against the shell at all. Pretty much all it really required was to get rid of the anodized coating and then maybe just a hair of some of the aluminum. But other than that, it really didn't require too much. So, as you can see now it'll just, I don't know if I can line it up right. Slides in nice and neat. It's got no up and down movement, but it's nice back and forth. So before you go ahead and assemble this thing, that's the first thing I would check, because you don't want to get metal shavings all in your hop-up unit. So leave it disassembled while you check your fitment. Also, before you put it together, take it, make sure it meshes against the your gearbox good. And be careful when you're doing this too. You don't want to take too much off one side. You want to try to keep that air seal as good as possible, so make sure you're sanding it evenly. I don't suggest using a Dremel because it's easy enough to do it by hand, and make sure that you don't take too much off. Also, if you're having, well, I'll get to that in a minute. Alright, so here's the hop-up unit, pretty simple. And when you get it, it comes with all these little parts in a bag. It may look overwhelming to people if you don't have experience, but it's very simple. First thing to note is you get two hop-up arms. One of them has kind of a nub already like pre-molded onto it, which would work good for like flat hop mods and stuff where you need that little bit of extra for the nub. The other one is just your standard hop-up arm. Your nub sits right in there. So the parts you got here, you've got these three little O-rings. Don't lose these, you will need them. And then your hop-up adjustment wheels, which compared to the stock GMP are like really nice looking. Here's your stock GMP one, just plain Jane plastic. And then you got your Modify here, which has this metal bushing going through it. And looks pretty heavy duty. One other thing to note about this compared to the GMP, or I think every other hop-up, because this is the first time I've seen this, is here's the GMP hop-up arm. Notice it's just got the shape where when you turn the dial it pushes down on that to raise or lower that. Well, on the Modify, they actually use a gear that goes in here. So it's supposed to, once you adjust it, it's not supposed to, come off your setting as easy. Nothing's going to be perfect. But anyways, your parts, you've got your spring for to keep your tension on the hop-up unit against the gearbox. Let's get rid of this GMP. You got your spring to keep the hop-up unit against the gearbox. You can still use your barrel. You can still use your barrel spring if you want. You got your barrel lock here. We're going to go ahead and get rid of this other hop-up arm we don't need. Comes with the spring. I'm not going to take it off because on this it was a real pain to get it on there. And then you've got this little thin washer here. Now, you may or may not need this. It all depends on if you have feeding issues. what it's designed for. It's designed to go over that like that. In case your nozzle's sticking too far into the unit here and it's not letting BBs feed right, you can put that little spacer on there, then put it back against the gearbox, and that should correct any feeding issues according to Modify. But with the GMP so far, it looks like everything is lining up just the way it should. So, real simple to put this together. Take your Hopup arm. Try to do this where you guys can see. Put it right there. Take your little pin that it came with. Just drop it through. Alright. Hold it in place with your thumb. Flip it over. Now this is where you're going to use the little O-rings at. The first little O-ring is going to go right around the other side of this peg here. The pin. It just pushes on. If you want to make sure, you can take something, there's a little groove around that pin that it locks into. Take something pointy and just make sure it locked in right. So you got your Hopup arm installed now. I already put my spring on, like I said, and their instructions, that's like the last thing they do, but you know, it doesn't matter. Next thing is your big O-ring here. It goes right around your main wheel here. Then you're going to take your middle gear, which is the one that's just flat. It's not this one here. That one's the one that goes through your Hopup arm. You're going to drop it onto the peg there. And don't, big side down. Okay. Now you can put this one on. Screw. It's a pain doing things with the camera, like right in my way. Another thing, these gears seem to mesh like really well compared to the stock one. I mean, you can move it, and it feels like it's not going anywhere. I mean, it's not hard to turn, but it's not like too easy to turn. It feels like once you get it dialed in, it's gonna stay there. Alright, so your next step now, you're gonna take this guy here. That's gonna lock through your Hopup arm. And then on the other side, I don't know if you can see here, there's that little pin that's going to stick through. You can see the notch. That's where your other little O-ring is going to go. So just drop that in there. Get it lined up with the teeth that are inside this too. Like so. Pop your little O-ring on, and you're done. Your Hopup chamber is assembled. Now I did leave one step out, and that was put the nub in on your, on your arm there. But I'm gonna be taking this thing back apart because I'm not done playing around with it yet. There's not too much I have to do to it. I was just playing with the R-Hop here, but other than that, that is the Modify Accurate Hopup for the M4 M16. Like I said, with GMPs for sure, you do have to remove material from the fins to get it to go in, and just a little bit around here. I would use a very coarse sandpaper because it gums up anything fine like instantly with whatever coating they used. It doesn't really look like a good anodized coating. It's kind of like cheap and like slimy feeling. But some coarse sandpaper, and then you can finish it off with some fine if you want. If it doesn't really matter. But that's it. So quit your bitching in the comments and in the reviews about how much of a pain in the ass this thing is to put together. As you can see, there ain't nothing to it. So go check it out. Thanks for watching.